Good evening. India woke up to the shocking news of Rishabh Pant's horrific car accident this morning. 5:30 a.m. is when it happened. The wicketkeeper batter had a miraculous escape when his Mercedes SUV crashed into a road divider and caught fire after he apparently went to sleep, dozed off at the wheel on the Delhi-Dehradun highway in the early hours this morning. Pant managed to escape the burning car through a window or the windscreen. It's unclear which of the two. The car turned into a mangled heap within minutes. The 25-year-old, who was on his way to his hometown Roorkee to surprise his mother, suffered injuries on his head, back and feet, but is in a stable condition following the accident in Mangalore in Uttarakhand's Hardwar district. Pant is currently admitted to the Max Hospital in Dehradun. The Board of Cricket Control is looking at his condition, and the latest that we know is that he's conscious, stable, 2 cuts on his forehead, injuries to his wrist, ankle and to his toes, abrasions on his back. Unclear if these also included burn injuries, but there have been images of serious injuries on his back. A ligament tear in his right knee for a sports person, that's a serious concern. And as I mentioned, the possibility of burn injuries is something we'll be looking at pretty closely as well. Now, in just a few minutes, we expect to be joined by Sushil Maan, who is the driver of a bus that stopped, and Sushil managed to help him out and get him to safety. It is a miracle that he actually survived. Joining us, Dr. Rohit Baluja, President of the Institute of Road Traffic Education, Dr. Jayanti Datta, who is a clinical psychologist. We're also joined by Dr. Verna De Silva, a sports physiotherapist, and the automotive expert, Tutu Dhawan. Mr. Dhawan, let me come to you first. We've all seen a lot of car accidents. We've studied this closely. It's not too often that a person manages to break the windscreen or even the window, right, and escape the car when it's on fire. In that sense, would you agree that this was, it's not really a cliche in this case, but it does seem to be a miracle that he managed to get out?
It's just providence, I would say, and the God has been with him that he's been saved in such a safe car. And the primary thing is that he was driving a very, very safe vehicle, by which, he got saved. And this is very, very unfortunate that this sort of a high-speed accident happened with him. As you said, he dozed off, and then the car veered off and went topsy-turvy on the other side of the road. Now, I just want to clarify one more thing which I've been hearing through the media and others, is that the front windscreen is not what he came out through. He came out through the doors, and this driver, commercial bus driver, will give you evidence of that he pulled him out from the door and laid him on the side of the road, where they thought, it was a dead body. But then they saw some motion in it after a minute or so, and then they got into the panic mode.
Yeah. Well, we've spoken to him as well, and he seems to suggest that it was one of the windows in the car, is what we are told. That is how he was actually pulled out. It wasn't the door which opened and he was pulled out. He helped himself out. But I'm just trying to look at this very closely. Dr. Rohit Baluja, while the structure of this car was intact in the context of a high-speed crash, the video shows this to be very high speed. We don't know the exact speed as yet. I'm sure that can be measured quite easily, but it was high speed. Would you say that the fact that it caught fire indicates some sort of design deficiency, or depending on the angle of the crash, is that something that can be expected and the point of impact?
I do not have much of the expertise in the automobile part of it, but there are many cases which do happen where it results in fire. And so I'm sorry not to be able to answer this question, but today one of the most important things is a proper scientific investigation into the crash. And here is where we actually lack in. Because everything, whether it's a vehicle, human being, or the environment, you have to look at all the 3 things together if you really want to understand why an accident happens. Today, my work is actually to train police in investigation of accidents, and we have almost like 67 factors which deal with the environment, human being, and the vehicle. But unfortunately, we only look at just 4 or 5.
You know, you're quite right. And let me jump in, and because this was my next point. It's been, many, many hours now. We still don't know a couple of basic things. Number one, was he belted or not? Number two, what is the speed of the vehicle? In fact, that could have been assessed on the basis of the CCTV footage quite easily. Number three, did airbags properly deploy in this case? Right? And so these 3 points, we don't know, we still don't know. Isn't this some, or whether there was alcohol consumption, which is a standard, it's a standard test which happens. In India, these don't get asked. Alcohol consumption, whether seatbelts were worn, the speed of the vehicle, right? These 3 things. We don't talk about it.
Everything actually is available. Evidence, if you want to investigate it, the evidence can tell us everything. The forensic systems can tell us everything. But one thing today, it's important to understand that the cases which we have examined over the period of time, we have realized that beyond what is happening in drunken driving, it is the stress, fatigue, tiredness. And this is a typical time that, you are sleepy. And driving at high speed, so stress, fatigue, and tiredness doesn't come as a part of the police investigation at all.
No.
Now, here is where we need to do a lot of, awareness to the people that, what does stress, fatigue, and tiredness mean? What does sleepiness mean, actually?
Tutu Dhawan had a point to make. Go ahead, Mr. Dhawan.
You were asking about how the car caught fire, and Mr. Baluja didn't have any answer. I can give you a clarification on that. 90% of these high luxury vehicles.
All right, just 1 second. 1 second. I'm joined by Sushil Man. He is the driver of the bus which stopped. सुशील जी धन्यवाद, आप हमारे साथ जुड़े हैं, हमसे बात कर रहे हैं. आप बस चला रहे थे सुबह 5:30 बजे. आपने क्या देखा, आपने क्या किया?
परिचालक बोल रहा है सर, गाड़ी का परिचालक हूँ मैं.
सुशील जी सुनाई दे रहा है आपको?
दुरुस्त कर देता हूँ सर, मैं परमजीत परिचालक बोल रहा हूँ, जो गाड़ी में मौजूद था, आगे फ्रंट सीट पर बैठा था.
परमजीत जी आप बस में थे उस वक्त?
हाँ जी, फ्रंट सीट पे बैठा था मैं उस समय.
जी, और आपने क्या देखा सुबह?
सर, गाड़ी आ रही थी दिल्ली की तरफ से
जी,
और वो दूर से दिख गया था, क्योंकि सुबह इतना ज्यादा फॉग नहीं था, सही था, विजिबिलिटी बढ़िया थी. तो 200 मीटर से, तो कम से कम 300 मीटर से दिखती थी भाई गाड़ी अनियंत्रित है. वो अनियंत्रित होकर हमारे सामने ही रेलिंग से टकराई. 2 रेलिंग तोड़ के वो इधर जो द्वार से दिल्ली जो रोड जाता है इधर कूदती हमारी बस के सामने. बस के सामने कूदने के बाद अनियंत्रित होकर वो फिर कंडक्टर साइड रेलिंग से टकराई. ड्राइवर ने बचाव किया गाड़ी का, वो ड्राइवर साइड में ले गया गाड़ी को.
तो परमिंदर जी एक चीज बताइए, ये ऋषभ पंत को कैसे निकाला गया? वो खिड़की से निकाला गया, विंडस्क्रीन से निकाला गया, या दरवाजे से निकाला गया?
स्क्रीन तो कुछ थी नहीं गाड़ी में, सब कांच वगैरह सब टूट गया था, सब कुछ नहीं था. सारे 3-4 पलटे लगा लिए थे गाड़ी ने. तो हमारे को तो उस टाइम हमारे को भी पता नहीं, कुछ भी पता नहीं, सच बताऊं.
नहीं, मैं साफ मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा है आप क्या कह रहे हैं. आप एक और बार बताइए जरा. आप कह रहे हैं कि ये विंडस्क्रीन, ये मतलब सामने वाला गाड़ी का विंडस्क्रीन से उनको निकाला गया, आप ये कह रहे हैं?
नहीं, विंडस्क्रीन सर, ये मैं ये बोल रहा हूँ, मेरे को ये हमारे को ये नहीं समझ में आया भाई, हम मतलब कैसे फंसा हुआ था वो गाड़ी में. बाकी आधा बार लटक रहा था वो ड्राइवर साइड से निकाला गया उनको. साइड से, हाँ जी, वो बाहर हमने खींच लिया उसको.
ड्राइवर के साइड से मतलब दरवाजे से या शीशा से निकाला गया उनको?
सर, दरवाजा तो बिल्कुल टूटा हुआ था.
ओके,
खत्म हो रहा था. और फिर इतना बारीकी से निकालते वक्त थोड़ा देखेंगे हम, अब इसका हालत गया बंदा, हमने तो रेस्क्यू करने से मतलब था. और इतनी बड़ी थी, इतनी ज्यादा मतलब वो था, हाहाकार मच रहा था भाई, एक्सीडेंट हो गया. कुछ सवारियां वो कर रही थी, हल्ला कर रही थी भाई, ये क्या हो गया, ये क्या हो गया, मर गई.
और आग लगी थी उस वक्त? गाड़ी में आग लगी थी उस वक्त, या आग बाद में लगी थी?
आग लगी हुई थी उस टाइम, डिग्गी में आग लगी हुई थी सर उस टाइम.
अच्छा, अच्छा,
हाँ जी।
और
हाँ,
उनका
तो
उनका
ऐसे,
कंडीशन,
तो-
ऋषभ का कंडीशन क्या था, क्या स्थिति था उनका उस वक्त जब आपने
उस
उनको
टाइम-
गाड़ी से
उस
निकाला
टाइम
था?
उस टाइम पंत जी अनकॉन्शियस थे, बेहोश थे। उनको हमने ले जाके जो बीच में डिवाइड होता है, फुटपाथ होता है।
वो बेल्ट पहने हुए थे गाड़ी के अंदर, जिसको आपको खोलना पड़ा?
हाँ जी।
सीट बेल्ट पहने थे गाड़ी के अंदर?
नहीं, सीट बेल्ट कुछ नहीं पहना था सर उन्होंने।
ओके,
हमने मतलब उस समय तो वो बाहर लटक रहे थे, क्या पता अंदर पहना था, क्या हो रहा था क्या नहीं हो रहा
जी।
था। उस समय वो बाहर लटक रहे थे गाड़ी से, और हमने खींच के बाहर निकाल लिया उनको।
और कितने देर के लिए बेहोश रहे?
इतना समय थोड़ा
और
सा है।
कितने देर के लिए बेहोश रहे?
और सर लगभग 1-1.5 मिनट रहे थे। तो
1-1.5
हमें
मिनट।
पूछने लगे, मैंने बोला ना ड्राइवर को, भाई इसमें देख कोई दूसरा आदमी तो नहीं फंसा हुआ है इसमें।
जी
तो वो तुरंत बोल उठे, भाई और कोई नहीं है, मैं ही था गाड़ी में।
जी,
मैंने उससे पूछा, भाई कौन है तू, कहाँ से है, कौन ड्राइव कर रहा था? बोला मैं ही ड्राइव कर रहा था, अकेला ही था, कोई और गाड़ी में नहीं था। और मैंने पूछा, भाई कौन हो तुम, कहाँ से हो? बोला मैं ऋषभ पंत हूँ, इंडियन क्रिकेटर।
ओके।
तो मैंने किसी को और की शॉल लेके,
जी।
उसको सवारी की शॉल लेके, तो मेरी सवारी थी मेरी गाड़ी में मौजूद थी, उसकी शॉल लेके उसको उड़ाई।
जी।
उड़ाने के बाद
ओके
मैं उसको,
ओके, परमिंदर जी शुक्रिया, आप हमारे साथ जुड़े और हमें बताएं क्या हुआ था आज सुबह, आपने जो देखा था, उनको गाड़ी से कैसे निकाला गया। थैंक यू वेरी मच। Couple of important points over there. Between Tutu and Rohit Baluja, he repeatedly mentions over there that Rishabh wasn't wearing a seat belt, which is a matter of huge concern, obviously over here. Whether or not wearing a seat belt saved his life or not is, it's a dodgy debate. But some would suggest that if he wore a belt, he wouldn't have had a lot of the injuries which he has suffered at this juncture. But he did come out from the side. I couldn't fully understand if it was through the window or through the door, as Tutu was suggesting earlier on. Tutu, anything else you picked up in that brief conversation?
Yeah, this is the latest, and you are saying that he wasn't wearing a seatbelt.
Yeah, that's what
Now,
what the eyewitness.
I'm really amazed and surprised, that he could walk out virtually with very minor injuries.
No, so he
if
didn't
was
walk
not
out.
wearing a-
Well, he was unconscious. That's the other point.
Whatever.
So there were 2 points.
Whatever.
I don't think that's correct, actually. To be honest, heat of the moment, he somehow managed to get him out. Perhaps by then Rishabh had managed to unhook the seatbelt, because to walk out. Eventually to be able to walk and to be in the condition that he's in without seatbelt seems unlikely. I would suggest that he perhaps was wearing his seatbelt.
Not possible. It's just not possible. Yeah, after a minute or two, he stands up and he says, I'm
Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
No.
yeah.
Without a seatbelt, that was not possible.
Yeah. No, I tend to agree.
You've seen just recently what happened in the Cyrus Mistry accident.
Yes.
That is pure evidence of somebody not wearing a seatbelt. And since he was driving in the driver's seat, let me tell you, if you are not wearing your
The alarm
seatbelt,
would constantly be going off.
Your airbags will not get deployed. So if the airbags don't get deployed, he would have been a dead man today.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Let me go across to Dr. Werner De Silva, sports physiotherapist. Dr. De Silva, based on the nature of the injuries that you've read about, and I'll just tell you what they are. Abrasions on the back. These could be burn injuries, not sure, because they appear to be burn injuries. But that again, BCCI is not confirming that. Some doctors have told us or indicated to our reporters there that could be the case. 2 cuts to the forehead. He's conscious and stable. Injuries to the wrist, ankle, toes. But very seriously for a sports person, a ligament tear in the right knee. He's a wicket keeper. So how do you assess these injuries?
Well, it all depends on the severity of the injury and the mechanism of injury. So basically, if the injury is really severe, it'll take him more time. He surely requires reconstruction surgery, which will be surely done on him.
Reconstruction of the ligament, right, on the knee?
Yes.
So what is a grade 2 tear? Because that's what we are told. It's a grade 2 injury, not tear. It's a grade 2 injury. Whether it's a meniscus or something else, we don't know. What is a grade 2 injury?
Well, a grade 2 injury is a very milder form of a severe kind of injury. So he's really lucky, and it's really a miracle. I think it's a miraculous escape which he had right now. So I think it's his determination which will surely get him back to normal. I think it's all an integrated approach between the physio, the doctors, and I'm sure he's going to come out of it. It's a miracle right now. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Dr. Jayanti Datta, as a clinical psychologist, is this not an aspect that we should be looking at very, very closely? That it's one thing to walk out of an accident like this, but to recover from this and to gain the intensity mentally which a sports person requires, or anybody else for that matter.
Yes. I take this opportunity to wish him a speedy recovery. At the same time, let me remind you that this kind of an injury, this kind of an accident produces lot of anxiety and, lot of doubt about your own self. And to go back again onto the roads, very often we advise for supportive therapy, supportive psychotherapy, and then the CBT. He had been a player of national level, So to go back to the field, to regain the self dexterity again, to regain the confidence in the self, I think he should be subjected to CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, to restore the self-esteem, to restore the self-confidence, and to groom him further again, to, confidently take to the road and take to the field. So this is the situation where he should be given the psychotherapy as a adjunct to the other therapies which he will be subjected to. He's been lucky that, you are reporting that it's a second grade injury. So the chances are his recovery physically would be definitely faster. But to restore back the confidence, he should be given the psychotherapy also, and specifically, which I said, the cognitive behavior therapy.
In
Because,
fact, Dr.
very often...
Half a second, ma'am. Dr. De Silva, would you like to add to that? Because you work with sportsmen and sportswomen.
Very true.
I mean, it's not just physical, it's mental and mental strength
totally,
and confidence.
It's totally mental, because it all depends on his mental state of mind right now, because we do not know how he is right now. It'll bring down a lot of insecurities in him, which will eventually, delay his progress and return on field. So a clinical psychologist will help at this very moment right now to know about his mental state of mind and to get him back on field, because it's all, as I said, it's all an integrated approach between the doctors, the psychologists, and the physios. So it works hand in hand.
I just want to bring out some statistics on road accidents in this country, because I think we do need to be talking about the larger issue as well, and something that we've tracked very closely. So let's have those graphics up, if we can, on the statistics and India's road safety is in a crisis. 17 people die on our roads every single hour. 13 lakh plus people have been killed in road crashes over the past decade. Think about that. If you've not heard it before, then know it now. 13 lakh plus people are killed in road crashes over the past decade. 29 children die every day on Indian roads. 50% of road accident deaths could be avoided if rapid assistance was provided. He was lucky. He was very, very lucky. 50 lakh people have been seriously injured or disabled in the last decade. This is again something, the last point, we don't talk about. You may have survived it, but your life can be altered forever. The impact on families, enormous. If somebody who's is physically incapacitated in any way, for example, ceases to be an earning member, it is absolutely disastrous. Dr. Valuja, we've spoken about this for years. Is there any message over here as we look at this horrific accident?
As an accident investigator, I could only say that to know the causative and consequential factors, it is very important today that the police need to investigate accident scientifically. If we know the proper causes and consequences, we can take effective remedial measures. But today, our investigation is absolutely rudimentary, and whatever data we are getting has got no meaning for us at all. Uttar Pradesh, imagine 23,000 fatalities every year, 63 people die every day. And we really don't know what is the causative factor. We only blame it to the driver, and that also to the heavy vehicle, and that is what is wrong today. We need a proper investigative system.
You know, Tutu, there's another aspect of this, and the structural integrity of the vehicle. I would suggest that that's what ultimately saved his life initially. Obviously, he had to get out of that fire. We've got video of a Mercedes G, of the exact Mercedes SUV 2019 model. This is a global NCAP test. It's rated 5 stars, this particular model of car, and it shows a certain impact. Where at a high speed, different conditions, whether it's a side impact or an impact from the front, tests go on. So let's have that up full screen. Again, these are vehicles which are designed to sustain, frontal collisions, offset collisions, side impacts. It's fitted with multiple airbags, which, as you can see, go off over there in the front. This car would also have had curtain airbags, which go off in the back. Now, this was a test. Global NCAP is very much the agency which is the global leader as far as this is concerned. What were there? See, that's where the side impact airbags actually deployed. Tutu, anything you'd like to add on, the structural integrity of cars and the importance of India having cars which have a high safety rating?
Well, yes, I would like to give you two aspects of this particular car. Firstly is the safety cage that is incorporated into the body at the time of manufacture, and that cage is basically the passenger area with the A, B and C pillars, and of course the roof and the floor. Now all that becomes a safety cocoon by using high tensile steel, and it's like a roll cage of a sports car that it cannot crumple. This area cannot crumple under most conditions. And the other safety feature that these cars give, and especially Mercedes here, is a fuel cutoff sensor at the time of accident. When the car has an accident and the airbags get triggered, the fuel supply from the tank gets cut off. With the result, there is no fresh fuel going into the into the engine. But let me tell you, the reason why this car caught fire is because the residue pressure between the fuel tank and the bonnet is about almost 9-10 feet, is about 30 to 40 pounds. Mm-hmm. And that residue fuel which got leaked out at the time of accident is what created the fire with a friction or an ignition by friction. So that is what then transmitted back into the vehicle. 50 to 60% of the bodywork and the interiors are all synthetic. So it is just like adding fuel to fire. Once the car catches fire, you can't stop it these days.
Well, I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us.